Welcome to Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. My name is Bornancin, a serial salesperson and entrepreneur, and I'm sitting down with the world's best sales experts to share their top secrets to sales success. Hello, welcome to Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. And I'm thrilled to have with me Mr. Chad Burmeister, VP of Sales at almost every technology company in the world, my man. What's going on? Thank you for joining us today.
I feel like I have to do a raise the roof here or something to keep up with that energy, man.
Dude,
Great to be here.
We're thrilled to have you. I came across you when you were at Connect and Sell, posting the daily dials and the daily activity. And I know you've got a depth of experience, man. I believe you went to school out in Colorado. You're part of the AISP out there. And then, you were leading sales and development and inside sales at Ring Central, at a number of places, Connect and Sell, On24, Iron Key. I mean, dude, you've been everywhere and you've got so much knowledge in so many different industries. I'm really excited for you to just tell the audience a little bit about you, how you got started in sales, going from nothing to VP of sales at all these different places, and then launching your own company and successes and failures along the way. Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so I'd like to start with the first company that I ever worked for, where I failed in 9 months and I was fired from my job. It's important to understand your roots, right? Because I didn't know how to sell. And so people who are sitting in a sales role today, I attended the Denver Enterprise Sales Forum a couple nights ago, and Keenan spoke. And one of the folks in the audience stood up and he asked a question. He said, I'm just not comfortable on the phone. I'm a little shy. I might be an introvert. What do you have advice for me? And Keenan kind of stopped in his tracks and he was just like, dude, why are you here? Where's your passion? And Keenan's answer was, I'm just passionate about what I do, and I like to solve people's problems, and I'm a fixer, and I like to help people. And so for me, I had the same passion. I like to fix things. I'm a problem solver. I was good at math. Like, I knew I wanted to be in sales. I'd been selling suckers on the bus when I was 8 years old on the way up.
How'd you get into sales, or how'd you know about sales? Like, did anyone in your family do it, or?
My cousin and my uncle were at Pfizer, so they were in pharmaceutical sales, and that's when I knew I wanted to go into sales. My cousin actually had a Porsche at a very young age, and he put First Mill on the back of his license plate. Although he hadn't quite really made $1 million, it was good. It was a good license plate.
Dude, that'll catch your attention.
That'll catch your attention. Yeah, that's when the Motorola flip phones were just coming out and those kinds of things. Pagers were big, I think.
So what'd you do? Like you see him roll up in the Porsche and you're like, dude, what are you doing over here? Like, what do you?
I said, yeah, how did you get to where you are? And he said, look, you just need to map the chart. Where do you want to be in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? And then you plot a map to get there. He said, just look at other people's resumes. Look at my resume. Look at your uncle's who's in pharmaceuticals or in tech or in software, and then map backwards, right? And just build your map to get where you want to be. And it really is, as hard as it is that simple. You just have to know where you want to go.
The first job that you had, Chad, so did you follow their footsteps? You say you got fired within the first 9 months. Did you go into pharma sales, or what'd you go into?
No, I went into a company called Olston Staffing Services. And so I sold a product where we would, staff temporary workers. And I'm an introvert by nature, right? People wouldn't guess that, but just because, you're talking all of that. Yeah, it's how people are built, right? You either recharge with people or you recharge on your own. My batteries get recharged when I go skiing on a Saturday morning by myself. I go up the chairlift. That's when I get my energy back. I enjoy talking to people like you, going on the road, but I'm actually an introvert. So, all shapes and sizes can do the art of selling. But that first job, Olston, it was obvious I was an introvert. I couldn't really figure out a way to ask the right questions. I wasn't catching on, and rightfully so. They gave me a chance, and it didn't work. So I hit the gym hard. I went to a company called Airborne Express, was my next job, and luckily there were 2 or 3 people around me who were just good salespeople, right? Salt of the earth, good salespeople. And they had a 3-week training program in Seattle where they really reinforced selling 101.
Nice.
So I think for me, you know, coming out of the, you know, this down thing where am I going to have to file for unemployment, right? This is my first job out of college to, okay, I am going to win no matter what it takes in the new job. And after 6 or 8 months, I became the #1 salesperson at Airborne Express.
That's crazy. Do you think you would have been the #1 sales guy without failing at that first job?
Hard to say. It certainly lit the fire, man. You learn things in your career when bad things happen to you. I mean, even recent, I had a business partner that vacated the business. And so we had to figure out a way to make that happen in an effective way for both of us. And, you know, cash flow is crazy when you're starting a new business. And so it's always going to happen to you, but you learn every single time that there's hard times that you go through it, and you just wake up every day, check the boxes on things you can check, and move forward. And that's what I did. And then at Airborne, it was just, you know, from 0 to hero in the course of a year. And from there, kind of the rest was history. I did get my roots in sales. Then I went to FedEx, another 3-week training program. I was ranked #1 out of a class of 100, you know, top role play, top of the class, 102% on the quiz. And, you know, it's just because that failure that was sitting there in my mind, I was never going to let that happen again.
Yeah, I love the failure. I mean, that teaches you so much. I don't know. I don't know if you'd be able to get to the number like without that. Like if you were super successful or average at that first job, like would you have really had that in you to just go and crush it? Because like graduating college, you're already like defeated because it's so hard to get a job anywhere. You know, hundreds of thousands of college kids graduating, and then you get in and you get let go. It's brutal, but that's amazing. So you hit FedEx, another awesome training program, crush it there. And then tell me about, you know, you were there for a while, a few years, and then you went to ScaleX and i2 Technologies and AMR. Like, tell me, like, did the training and did the sales experience differ a lot at all these different places?
Yeah, so I went from transportation into tech. And when most people move, whether you're in insurance sales or transport or something other than software, it's hard to make that pivot into software, right? What most people do is they have to take a quote unquote step back and become an SDR or BDR and say, look, I've been a salesperson for 5 or 10 years, but now I'm going to go do outbound because I don't understand the rules of the game from software. Instead of doing that route, I went to a company called ScaleX that is a software transportation software company. So it was calling on the same companies, and I get the lingo, right? So it was a parallel industry, and I was able to come in as a seller. And I had a very good mentor that just taught me the rules of the game. I also learned some of the, you know, the traditional Oracle kind of salespeople techniques that were not as, I don't know, ethically correct in today's environment. And I didn't like it, right? This was back in about 2000 when you're selling $1 million deals and, you know, a VP tells you, hey, just sell the deal on a Friday, tell them we can do everything. And on Monday, after they've signed the PO, tell them it's going to take a year to deliver all those features. And so when SaaS came into the marketplace around 2000, 2001, and now you could buy software as a service, that fit in line with my ethical compass. And so it was interesting timing because I learned some of the tactics of what these, you know, high-flying, multi-million-dollar sellers do. And I always say, take the best and forget the rest. So there's a few tactics in there that are worthwhile, but generally speaking, I just was happy that SaaS came into the marketplace.
Yeah, I heard Larry is just a super aggressive maniac, man. I mean,
yeah, and I'm sure they've toned down their selling techniques these days, and they've had to step up into the SaaS world as well. But it was good to see because now you actually sell something and you have to deliver upon the promise. You can't just sell and walk away. And I think that's what's changed in the last several years. So then once I'm in tech, right now I'm in ScaleX, and I worked for a guy named Steve D'Angelo, who's now the president of Aviso, and they do sales forecasting stuff. Great friend of mine, mentor. He's on my board, and he actually taught me to like scotch. So nice. Glenlivet was his drink of choice. He'd order a water and a Glenlivet, and so that's where I learned to drink scotch. But we would have these talks for an hour and a half after a day of 2 or 3 sales calls, and he just gave me the fundamentals. And I'll tell you, one of the fundamentals, this came from actually Skip Miller, Steve, says the same thing, but if you've never heard the term R equals F times C, revenue equals frequency times competency. And so whenever I have new people that join my company, I always teach them that equation, right? And we put things under it. So revenue, let's say your goal is $1 million. Yeah. That's the revenue.
Yep.
Right? And then you have frequency. All right, well, what constitutes frequency? A phone call could be one of those activities. An email is one of those activities. A social outreach connection is one of those activities. A vidyard video is one of those activities. So there's 4 or 5, a physical letter, right? And so the way I always looked at it, early in my career, I did not have competency yet, right? Especially in that first job when I was let go. And so what I always tried to do in new jobs is I always tell my people, get the F up, right? Get the F up. So revenue equals frequency. You don't have a high competency yet. So maybe you're at a 70%. That's a C. But if you can have your frequency, let's say 50 activities a day is the normal. You're using a tool like SalesLoft, Outreach, et cetera, and you're loading in X number of prospects per day. You make Y number of calls, and your company says, do 50. And most people, what do? 50 or 51 or 52. I would be the guy that would say, if you were my manager, I'd say, Brandon, I tell you what, man, would you mind if I make it 150 a day, right? I think if I do more activity, that's going to make my frequency move up. My competency's here. I'll learn over time through repetition, and I'll bring my manager in on calls. So it'd be like, Brandon, I'd love to bring you in on some calls because you'll find I'm a quick study. But the frequency part is where I win against my competition. And so managers are like, sure, you want to do more? Of course, do more, right? So if you're building a cadence or a sequence or a flow or whatever you call it, in whatever app you're using, just have, if there's 2 or 3 call activities, make it 5, make it 7. If there's 3 or 4 emails, add more personalization to yours than the other guy, right? But to me, that frequency piece is so important, especially early in a sales career.
Yeah, you know what they say about talent and working hard. Talent doesn't mean anything if you don't work hard. And I feel like that frequency, I was never smart. I was never that smart. And I just worked really hard because I knew I was never that smart. So I would have to outperform and do more output than everyone. It sounds like, your thought process is like, okay, if your competency, on a scale of 1 to 10 is a 5, and everyone is doing a 5 in frequency, well, let's just do a 20 in frequency. And if you keep the 5, you're still way ahead of everyone else that's got higher than both.
Exactly. What's interesting is over time, that competency gets up to a level where now you're as good or better than other sellers because your frequency started high. That means you're having more repetitions. And so just like anything, I've been working out for the last 6 months, 2 days a week. I've got a trainer. I go in.
Congrats.
The first week, man, I took my son on the weekend, and driving home, I had to pull off the side of the road, and I thought I was going to pass out, like literally pass out. I got flush, and I just sat behind the wheel for 5 minutes and recuperated. Now I can do 75-pound dumbbells on either side on an incline or a decline, 20 repetitions. I can kind of do what I used to do because of that 6 months of focus on frequency. And then it carries over into your skiing, right? I love to ski. I'm actually going to do a little bit of that next week, so looking forward to it. helps you with your daily, just like you work out in the mornings, right? It just makes you more productive. So frequency times competency, man, that's where it's at.
I think competency, the frequency is activity, right? Sales activity, the calls, the emails, social touches, direct mail, video, all of that jazz, which I love. And I come from digital marketing sales. So like in marketing, it was all about leverage all these multi-channels, SEO, paid search, paid advertising, social advertising, social media, mobile. Like marketers never complained about like, is one channel better than the other? They just used them all and figured out which ones to dial up and down. It's funny, all these battles in sales. Oh, this channel is better than this. It's like, dude, just shut up and use them all at a high level, right?
Yeah, no, that's right. I think Mario Martinez and Gabe Larson actually became friends after the Duke, and I just ran into Mario.
That was fun.
That was good, right? So I think they both agree. At the end of the day, when Mario talks about digital selling, he's not saying only go through social. He's saying digital selling just means things have changed and you should use all the channels. So I think at the end of all that, I think we should call it a draw between those two because they're both using all of the touch points in multi-channel.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, so competency, let's talk about competency and what it is and how to develop it. Since the secret to sales success by Chad Burmeister is revenue equals frequency times competency. So what is competency and how do we get that dialed up as high as possible?
Yeah, wonderful. So competency is sales. It starts with the blocking and tackling. Let me tell you this story about competency. So I talked to a guy, Nick Bonkowski. He worked for me at On24, called him up yesterday, and he's in North Carolina. He actually opened a restaurant bar. He's also a high-level. He's awesome, right? He's he's a sales leader in his company, and he owns a bar. And so his little league or his football team, where his son plays, won the entire season. So I said, "What is it? Why did your team win? I said it's you can always have good talent, but I assume you're not going to tell me it's talent." And he's one of the coaches. I said, "Usually it's the leadership because you make some decisions." And he said, "Yep, I can tell you exactly why we won." He goes, "We made the decision very early on to focus on blocking and tackling, the basics." And so, you've heard that a million times. Focus on the basics. Everybody else is running all these other crazy plays. And he said, we had about 50 plays. I don't know if that's a lot or a little for football. I've never been a football coach. He was the defensive coordinator. So he taught his boys to focus on the blocking and tackling of defense. And he said at the first half of the season, they were 5-5. Or for the full season, I don't know if that was the full season, probably 5-5. He said, but by halfway through, they started winning. They were losing at the beginning, focusing on blocking and tackling. But then by midway through the season, they started crushing it and killing the competition. And then they took it all the way through the playoffs and just crushed. The last team they won, they held them to 8 points. And the other team had been getting 35 points all year long because they focused on blocking and tackling. So for me, competency comes down to, so Skip Miller, I learned from very early on, 30 years ago. 25 years ago, right? How do you sell? Find the problem. What's the impact of the problem? And you go from there. I went to Selling Through Curiosity, Barry Ryan training. Same thing. Find the problems. What's the impact of the problem? Then you look at the root cause. They're dressed up in slightly different way depending on the presenter, and they all have their own terminologies. The most recent, and I would say most impactful I've ever heard, is Gap Selling by Keenan. Right? It's purpose-built for this generation. He drops some F-bombs from time to time. But here, let me tell you the story that he told at the Denver Enterprise Forum the other day. He said, all right, you've got a headache, and it's not just a normal headache. It is a migraine headache, and it's Sunday morning, and someone comes to you and says, Brandon, if I can give you a pill for $5 to get rid of that headache, would you pay $5? Sure, right?
Yeah, personally.
You pay $5.
I don't want to.
Perfect. Okay, would you pay $100 to get rid of a migraine headache on a Sunday morning?
Yeah, because Saturday and Sunday is when I get the most work done. So yeah,
Would you pay $1,000?
I don't know.
No, I wouldn't pay $1,000. Like, I'll take the headache, right? Yeah. Well, okay. Now let me ask you another question. Now let's change the situation a little bit. So now you're 35 years old. You've got 2 daughters. You've been in to have an EKG done over the last couple of weeks, and it turns out you have a brain tumor, and you are not going to make it. You have 3 months. And I tell you, hey, this pill, beyond a reasonable doubt, will take that tumor out of your head. Would you pay $1 million?
For survival, yeah, I would try to come up with the cash for sure.
I'd try to come up with the cash, right? So then he said, all right, let's do another example. Same thing, you're 35 years old, maybe you're 25 years old, and you've got a proposal that's due by noon. And if you get it in, it's a $3 million proposal. And you will make $50,000 in cash if you get it in. And there's no competitors. All you have to do is get it in, and you know you're going to get it. Yet you are so out of it, you can't even wake up, right? You're out of it. You're laying in bed. Yeah. I come to you with a pill, and I say, okay, same pill, right? I can get rid of your migraine within 5 minutes of the time you take this pill. You'll get your thing in. You'll get your $50,000 proposal. You'll win it. You'll go to President's Club. What's that worth to you? 5 grand? 10 grand? Right? Shit. There's a tipping point where it's like, okay, depending on the problem and the impact of the problem and the value, you've got to figure out the impact. And that's when it comes to competency. To me, all these other tricks and closes and freaking objection handling and probing with open-ended questions and bullshit, that's all fine. Those are style points. If you can just figure out what's the problem and what's the impact of the problem, now you know this prospect's worth spending time with. This one's not. This one maybe. This one I'm going to have pricing pressure. Just take the time to understand the customers, be in their shoes, right? What's their problem and what's the impact of the problem? Then you go back and say, well, shoot, let's figure out together what's the cause of that problem. And now you're a consultant. And then all you have to say is, yes, we can do that. At the end of that discovery session, you spent 30 minutes with them, and now it's time to do a demo. You don't have to do a demo anymore. You just go, oh, that's fantastic. I'm glad we talked. That's exactly what my company does. I can put you in touch with 1 or 2 references that'll tell you exactly how we've helped companies solve their pipeline problem, crush their numbers, and make it to President's Club, right? But think of that example of the pill. It's very different value to different people depending on the different people involved. That's competency to me, is focus on the core and then build around it over time.
Wow, I love that. That was a great analogy. I love this story that you took us. That was like a hell of a journey, dude. I love that. That was like getting on the mountains, my man. And by the way, I got to there to wakeboard with you. I'm sorry, to snowboard with you. I ripped my right shoulder backflipping on my wakeboard, and it put me out for like 6 months. But I think I'll be good here in like another 20 days. I'm hoping.
Well, it's supposed to be an El Nino year, apparently. So the snow is already in Loveland, Colorado. It's 100 inches, which is unheard of so far. So this is the year.
It's going to be crazy.
It's going to be crazy. Yeah. I've got my wide skis, my narrow skis, and my other ski. Yes, I've heli skied.
You've heli skied, dude? I've only done hella snowboarding once, and I want to do it like 50 more times. But my fiance says don't do it. The investors are going to get super pissed.
Nah, it's not dangerous. You just do the middle of the line one. You don't go to the. There's one that's chutes and ladders or something. It's called. Don't do that one. Do the one in the middle.
When I screwed up my shoulder, I was like, no, you can't break sales, dude. You can't break your right or left arm or anything.
Well, now you have Alexa. You just talk to Alexa. She could input everything for you.
Yeah, there you go.
AI.
So the competency part, it sounds like finding the problem. How do you do that? How do we find and identify that problem with the customer? In your opinion, like you've been doing this for a really long time. I'm sure you've got it down to science and an art. How do we find out what the problem is with these prospects and these
Yeah,
customers?
it's a conversation, right? The opening line in meetings that I have is, look, take anything that you know about my company, take it out of the equation. Just tell me about what's going on at your company. You really have to understand, when I worked for WebEx, it was, hey, take WebEx out of the equation. I get it. You filled out the online form. We're going to get there later. First, tell me about Seamless. And so, your mind's thinking about Seamless all the time. You're going to just make it open. You're going to say, all right, well, you want to know? Well, tell me about your company. Like, how'd you get into the business? What's your target markets? Just tell me everything you can about Seamless in 5 minutes or less. And once they start talking, they're just going to talk and talk and talk. There was a guy, again, back to Keenan's presentation, that I know. He worked with me. His name's Chad also, so Chad too. And he was a professional bump skier, in fact. Very, very, very good skier, right? I think he was even maybe Olympics team level. And he asked a question. He said, man, I go in and I've got 30 to 45 minutes for a discovery call. And there's a certain point where when I ask too many questions, I get the feeling that, I don't want to bombard them with a litany of questions. And so I feel like at some point I have to give them value. And so Keenan kind of sat back and he was like, well, let me ask you a question. He goes, so Chad, what's your current process for discovery? And Chad went on and on and on. And he's like, oh, tell me more. And he went on a little more. He's like, okay, did you guys in the audience, you see what I did? All I did is ask Chad to tell me some stuff. And so just by opening up, just tell me about you, what's going on. The way I do this is another Chad trick. So my dad was a doctor. My uncle was Pfizer Pharmaceuticals. My brother-in-law, it's all in the family. And so when I would go into the nurse and they would take your blood pressure when I was young, they used to have a mercury needle. And the nurse could see the high over the low pressure. So when it stopped, I'm going way back here, man. We're not holding any punches.
Oh my gosh, dude. I love that.
So when you're doing discovery, you have to be like that nurse and you have to see when the mercury needle stops. To the naked eye, I could never see it. I was always like, what? How do you see that it stopped? She's like, oh, I've just done this for so long. So when you're doing a sales call and you're like, so Brandon, tell me more about your company. Tell me about this. There's a point where you're going to take this deep breath. And if you can see them on the video, that's even better. That's why we like tools like Zoom and WebEx and things, right? You can see the person. But when you hear that, then you've got to give them something. So at that point you go, look, Brandon, the reason I'm asking you all these questions is because thank you. First of all, thank you for sharing all that with me. It's been awesome, whatever. And then you tell a slight story. So one company that uses this product that we offer, give them a story to get them to understand why they just told you all that information. Well, then after you've told them one quick thing, now it's back to discovery, right? The needle stopped. Now it's going to go. Now you're going to ask a bunch more questions. So real quick, before we get into showing you anything today, a couple more quick questions. And then I'm firing off more because the more you're armed with data, if you don't have the problem and the impact of the problem, then don't frickin' show your stuff. It's a total waste of time. It pisses off the buyer. So why do it, right? That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I'm a huge believer in everything that you said about just like discovery. It's so critical. I still can't believe there's sales teams out there that like just go right into the pitch and the capabilities deck without asking questions about the business that they needed to know. I mean, you could learn a lot about anyone via research, right? And I know you and I both built technologies that will research all this data about people and companies and things like that and then make it useful. But there's still things behind the curtain that you need to know, like different targets or different AOVs or different expenses, revenues, there's always something that you need to know in the discovery. They may have just laid off a bunch of people, hired a bunch of people that's not even public yet. Like there's always something that we could learn or know to take it to the next level. So when you bring someone on, let's just say you're about to hire someone and you want them to maximize, let's just say it's someone brand new out of college and you want to show them how to master this sales secret. Revenue equals get the F up, frequency times C, competency, get the FC up, get the FC up, frequency times competency. Like, what would you do? Do you do you start them off with a high activity goal plus a lot of discovery questions? Like, just because.
Well, that's a really good question. The first thing I do is I give them the template workflow of a good sales conversation. And so this goes way back too. It's called AppCom, APPCOM. And the first part is gaining acceptance, right? When we first started talking today, we talked for 5 minutes about stuff that's unrelated to this conversation, right? Yep. Skiing, whatever. So most people, especially introverts like myself, our general knee-jerk reaction is to get into call. All right, hey, so Brandon, I see you downloaded a white paper. What piqued your interest to learn more about ScaleX today? Wrong answer. Gain acceptance. Second, state your purpose. Well, look, and you as the rep, it's your job to take control of the reins when that call happens. If you let the customer control it, now they're going to lead you to water. It's going to go down the path that you don't want it to go down. So you gain acceptance, and you have to get good at this right before they're going to jump in and say, well, look, while we're here today, you got to take that control.
What do you mean by gain acceptance? How would one do that?
So, hey, Brandon, I see that's a cool office there. Where on planet Earth are you today? That's a good way to gain acceptance. You're like, oh, where are you, downtown San Francisco?
No, we're actually, this office is in Columbus, Ohio. Go Buckeyes.
Oh, well, then I wouldn't have gotten that right. Columbus, Ohio.
Well, I mean, we do have remote offices in New York and San Fran. So, we got a lot of partners here in Columbus.
You're in Columbus right now. Okay, cool. See, I wouldn't have known that. When you did your, and that's why you open up with something about the customer. Where on planet Earth are you today? The fallback one is always, how's the weather in Columbus? It must be cold. That one's gotten overplayed over the years. Yeah. So I kind of like the crisp deal, where on planet Earth are you? Because now I can say, oh, Columbus, wow, cool. Isn't that where like the Hall of Fame is? Sportsbook Hall of Fame or something like that?
Yeah. Well, there, and what's funny? My favorite opener is actually from you and Chris Beal, that I learned from you guys from Connect and Sell. I remember I would ask Beal and just, I forget the guy's name, but they're like, I was like, what's your top opener? Because I know you guys were dialing for dollars like crazy over there. And, he's like, ask for acceptance, and it'd be like, hey, can I get 17 seconds or can I get 10 seconds or 12 seconds? Like some random number.
27 was the number we said.
27 seconds. That's right. And I was like, 27 seconds. I was like, I don't have 27 seconds, so I'm going to ask for 17. So now I 17. And
we had one customer start with 5 minutes. He goes, I realize I'm interrupting. Do you have 5 minutes? I can tell you why I called.
See, 5 minutes is too long.
Yeah.
When I started using that, I never got told no. Like, it was like, sure, go. Like, that was one of the ways that I got acceptance, and I got that from you guys when you were over there.
Yeah, so that's on a cold call. When you're actually in a meeting where you're doing discovery, that's where I'm talking about gaining acceptance. So there's cold call tactics, and then there's in the meeting selling tactics. So when I'm doing the AppCom, I'm saying now we're in a discovery meeting. We've already gotten through setting it up. So I need to gain acceptance in the first couple minutes. Then I need to state my purpose. Hey, the reason why we're here is to understand a little bit more about Seamless and make sure we understand your growth goals for 2019. And by the end of the call, we want to see if there's at least a fit to determine if it makes sense to have a next conversation. Does that make sense? Are we on the same page? Is there anything else you'd like to get out of the call today? Right? And then the customer has the chance to say, yeah, here's what I'd like to see. And then I'm usually writing that on the screen saying, okay, great. Let's make sure we cover those 2 points. That's state your purpose. Then probing is the third. So, all right, now let's get into it. That's where you go through question after question after question. It's usually a good idea, if you're going to do this, have the questions listed, right? You want to have that written out. Tell me about, your company at a high level. Tell me about your department. Tell me about you personally. There's a lot of things you can learn over time about probing, good books about it. But that's the third piece, probing.
And by the way, for probing, one of the tips that I found really valuable is to just have those questions directly in Salesforce.
Yes, yes.
You live in Salesforce, like don't put it in a Google Doc and then copy and paste it into Salesforce. Just have your admin create the damn discovery questions on the opportunity record or the account record. It's so stupid making this stuff difficult.
Yes, yes. And I very rarely see that. And that's the very first thing when I started my company was putting those 6 questions in there. So
I've got 7, dude, and I use them every single time.
Yeah.
I haven't done it for this interview process, and it freaks me out because I'm so used to, like, I know the exact questions I want to ask every single time. And I'm like, well, I don't want the interview to be too structured. So I haven't done it for this book yet, but I want it. It's killing me.
Yeah. It's probably not a bad idea to have structure. All right. So you're through the second P. APP.
Yep.
C is for consulting. So now it's based on the probing that we've done. In the first 5 minutes of me telling you something, it has to be about your problem. It can't be about anything else. I just had a sales call a little while ago today, and the director came in and he spent the first 5 minutes trying to understand a little about our business. Then he goes, "Do you mind if I share you my screen?" And I was like, "Dude, you're not going to consult on anything that I've just shared with you. You have to consult to the problem. So you told me your problem was this, this, and this." And in the first, this was Stu Schmidt taught me this. He was the head of sales training at WebEx. Then he became the head of Connect and Sell. Now he does a lot of very cool consulting. This guy gets it. In the first 5 minutes, answer the stuff that the customer cares about. Then you can go into other ancillary things. So consult to the problem. All right. So then you've consulted. Now overcome objections. So again, similar thing. You want to have a list of the top 10 objections. They're always going to be the same things, right?
Same
over
thing
and over and over.
Yep.
So get good at it. $40,000 is a lot of money for your product. And so, I kind of,
yeah,
and you have to come back to that. You say, interesting. So, you said that the problem you're having is that your current team of SDRs didn't deliver enough meetings. And the reason for that is that they didn't do enough activities. And you came to us because you're going to see 30,000 activities in 3 months instead of 30,000 activities in a year, right? And so you say, so what would you, hang on, what did we say earlier you spend for 3 BDRs for 1 year? Like $250,000? So I'm confused. This is a Keenan, by the way. I'm confused. $40,000 compared to $250,000. I don't get it. How's 40 expensive? Am I missing it? And then you make them talk their way out of it, handle their own objection. Well, no, you're right. I get it. I guess my bigger objection is I need to talk to a prospect who's actually done this before. Oh, okay. Why didn't you just say so? Let's get them on the phone.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So overcome objections. And then finally, the last piece of the puzzle under competency, motivate to act. So it bothers me when there's no motivate to act, right? It's top of the hour right now. We're probably about to wrap up this conversation. So that's where you go for the motivate to act. So you say, all right, so Brandon, this has been a really good conversation. I tell you what, for any of your listeners, this is unplanned, by the way, but since we're talking about structure, any of your listeners today, if they go to BDR.ai and submit a form, I will give them 1 month free trial of the personalization platform offered through BDR.ai, right? You're there for a sales call. Make sure you get the ask in. When people come and interview at WebEx, if they didn't ask for the business at the end, and we'd give them time, we'd sit there, we'd go through the interview, they'd talk to 4 or 5 managers, and then we'd sit there and we're like, okay. And we'd wait, and then we go, all right, well, hey, it's good to meet you. And we gave them a chance to say, well, do I have the job or not? And the people who couldn't motivate to act, forget it. They can't ask me for the job. I'm going to give them the job.
Yeah,
right?
They can't ask for the job. How are they going to close in the future?
Exactly. So motivate to act, right? And then there's 2 pieces of that. You have to have a best action commitment and a minimum acceptable action. So the best action commitment might be, so Brandon, based on the conversation, 30,000 activities delivered in 1 quarter. How would you like to have that starting on January 1st? We'll send you the contract and you can sign it by close of business today. And we'll be able to be ready for January 1 launch. And then you go, well, Yeah, that sounds a little much. You have to have an idea of the minimum. Okay, well, how about this then? If that's, too big of an investment, I get it. Maybe the next funding round's coming in or whatever. Then you say, well, how about at least having 2 people use the technology for a month, right? And then we'll just do a couple check-ins along the way. Would that give you comfort so that at the end of January, we can check back in and see the lift that you've gotten by using the technology, right? Have your best action and your minimum before you go into the call so that you know what your ask is going to be. And start high. Don't be a wimp. I think another tool out there, the old training was called Wimp Junction. You're either going to ask for the big one or you're not. If you go for the little one, they're going to go for something that's smaller than that. Yeah.
Wow. Dude, I
Take
love
the
it.
right path.
I love this app comment. And I'm a big acronym guy, again, because like I need simple, stupid simple. So acceptance, permission, purpose.
State your purpose.
Walk through the 6 again.
Yeah. So gaining acceptance, state your purpose, probing,
probing, discovery,
consulting, overcome objections, and motivate to act.
Overcome objections or objection handling and motivate to act. I love it. And
so when I'm running a sales call with a rep, it's on my whiteboard, and we do that, and I just check the box. And then at the end, and I have a cheat sheet, right? A scorecard through one of these online forums where I'll actually do role plays before we have the reps get on the phone call and actually start closing deals. And we'll do a mock discovery call. So, if you're selling Seamless to me, which by the way, best data provider out there, side note, but if you're selling Seamless to me, I want to know that new rep goes through it in a mock environment first before we put them in the real world, right? And we have a team of people. We have like their peers act as the buyers, and because the peers know all the objections, so the peers can throw out the hard ones and facilitate it in a test environment before the real world.
And you said what was really cool about the motivate to act, you said there's 2 parts to that. What were those 2 parts again? So the minimum part, and then what were those?
There's a BAC and an MAA. So best action commitment.
Okay.
And minimum acceptable action.
Committing to the next meeting, or what is that?
Well, the best is so let's just use your example, right? You're on a first call, let's say. It's a discovery call, and it's a 45-minute call. What's the best thing that's ever happened in a 45-minute call for you guys?
They buy right away.
Okay, so that's probably your best action. Yeah, one call close is your best action commitment every time, right? Yep. That's your best. What's your minimum? Typically.
Because we're like high transactional sales, like Salesforce, like it's easy, world's best sales leads platform. It's around $100 a month. You could buy it pretty easily for any number of seats. I would say if we don't get the one call close, it'd be like setting up a follow-up meeting with the whole team or get it with the DM to sign off on that deal.
Yeah, got it. Perfect, right? So first is sign the deal on that call. Maybe it's an influencer, you didn't get the DM. So minimum is, hey, now we've done this call, when can we get the DM in? That's good. You just got to have those 2 goalposts in mind before you go in and just drive to that, right? Did you get your BAC or did you get your MAA? I mean, it could almost be a Salesforce checkbox.
Yeah, totally.
At the end, right, if you look at a rep that has 100 live calls, how many times did they get the BAC? Well, guess what? The guy who asks for it every time, well, I tell you, Brandon, we've just talked, you have 5 users. There is this end of year deal, right? It's November. If you sign now, the start date's January 1st, but you can use it all through the month of November. So the sooner you sign, the better. Based on everything we've covered today, showing you Seamless, you saw there's 5 times more contacts. There's better account data. There's better phone numbers, better emails. It's all socially validated. Based on everything you've seen and we've talked about today, it looks like it meets your business problem. That'll help you make your numbers next year. Is there anything standing in the way from us signing up today?
I love that.
Golden silence, wait. But if you don't teach your reps to do that, what's standing in the way from us signing today? Then if they're starting at the minimum acceptable action, well, I'll tell you what, we can get this back together, do touch base, next blah, 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 bullshit. Ask for the frickin' meeting, right? Ask for the deal, not the meeting, right? We've just covered everything you need to do. What would stop you from signing today? And then at least you might, maybe normally you close 2 per 100 because they're forcing you to buy. They're like, no, I'm ready, man, let's buy. No more meetings required. Don't make that happen. Just say, what would it take to earn your business today? You'll get a free month already. No, oh, okay, send me the contract. Maybe you'll take 2 per 100 and make it 50 per 100 just by asking the question.
Yeah, I love that. And if they don't want to do the minimum, there's obviously, you didn't do the O. There's another O that probably is holding up the minimum viable action or the maximum viable action.
Yeah, or you don't know the problem and the impact, right? Because remember, that's where you can come back to the Keenan, oh, I'm confused. You said the problem is that you don't have enough data in your database. Mm-hmm. Data.com is being sunsetted, and so your SOL, you have no other alternatives. I'm giving you a way to meet your objectives. You've already talked to 2 references, or I can provide them for you. I'm confused. Help me understand, right? And then now they have to sell back to you and go, well, let me tell you the real reason. My VP, he came from Yesware, and Yesware they use this thing, and so blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm. You and I have been doing this too long with our 2 new sales tech companies, man. That's awesome. Wow. Dude, revenue equals frequency times competency. You have to use AppCom to build up competency, to build up frequency, just because we didn't really cover, like, the best way, in your opinion, we know there's a lot of technology out there. To build up frequency, if we're starting at 10, 20 calls, emails, social touches, and you're like, dude, you gotta ramp up the frequency, ramp the F up. How would I, what would you recommend just for a rep real quick, and then we'll wrap up with the closing?
Yeah, I mean, whatever tool you're using, doesn't matter. But you can crank up the knob on that, whatever tool you're using, even if it's just an Outlook, right? You can crank up the numbers. So,
well, I mean, would you tell the person, like, dude, you just got to crank it up, like, stop being lazy, like, just, you got to.
Yeah, I would say, hey, you're a rep, go to your manager and have a sit down and say, hey, Brandon, man, I love Seamless. This company's been great. I've been here for a month. I'm doing okay, right? I think you'd agree. I've sold a couple deals, but man, I want to 5X it. I want to do 10X. And so if it's okay with you, you're my manager. I'd like to, rather than use the company defined sequence, cadence, or flow, or whatever it's called, playbook, I want to add in, instead of just 2 or 3 phone calls, I promise you, I won't let any slip. I want to make it 8 phone calls in my sequence. And then I want to do, instead of the 3 emails, I think I want to make it 4. And by the way, I want to do a physical letter as at least to the 100 CEOs and CFOs, because I think adding physical, I've heard, can get as much as 10 to 15% reply rates. So if it's cool with you, I'm going to, I might need to have an investment in some FedEx letters. That would be like $10 times 100. I mean, it's going to, it's not that much money, but if it's good with you, I just want to crank the knob and show you as my leader what that can do for you, the company, and for me, my commission check. What leader is going to say, no, get the F down? Not any good leaders that I know.
Nope.
So ask, right? And all you have to do is clone the sequence, clone the cadence, clone the playbook, and say, this is the Chad B or the Brandon B cadence. This is the this is the get the F up cadence. And I'm just going to double or triple everything in it. I'd say, honestly, triple the dials. You don't want to quadruple the emails. That's what lazy people do. Yeah, you want to add more personalization to your emails. But if you're going to triple anything, make more calls, man. It takes 20 to 30 dials to talk to a decision maker nowadays. That's just the math. So don't do 2 and think you're going to get there. Crank it up.
Oh, I got a good question for you, just because I know now you're into personalized emails and data, which is amazing. And before you were into mass outreach on the phone with places like Connect and Sell. Is the phone dead?
Oh man, there we go. There we go.
I hate this question too, dude. I hate this question too, but I noticed you transitioned from mass dialing to personalized data and emailing, right?
So I've always said, let the data be the data. And here, I'll give you 2 data points that contradict each other.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you, this is Gabe Larson versus Mario with Chad right down the center.
Perfect.
So across 1.2 million dials, we have scheduled hundreds and hundreds of meetings. And it turns out that of those 1.2 million dials, it's about 70% of the total meetings scheduled for our clients. So if the phone was dead, would 70% of all meetings across all my clients come from the phone still? No. So companies who go to just email and social, to me, they're leaving 2 times as many meetings on the table by not using the phone. All right, so that's data point 1. Now I'm going to give you data point 2. Chris Beal and Sean McLaren and the crew at Connect and Sell call it pigs and weasels. You're either a conversation pig or a conversation weasel. And a weasel means you like to you'll weasel your way out of the conversation no matter what. And so I'm a weasel by birth and by my introvert personality. And so for me personally doing outbound, in the first 3 months of the year, I did phone, email, and social. I ate my own dog food, drank my own champagne, and booked a shit ton of meetings, more meetings than you could ever know what to do with. And I had a co-founder who did the same thing. Calendar lit up every single day. Then the meetings got to be so heavy and so many transactions that I let off the gas and I stopped doing calls. I said, well, I'll still do the emails and the social. And my calendar got a lot less populated than it was when I was doing all 3. Now, in the last 3 months, I kind of went through this spell where now my calendar wasn't as full. I had to turn the knob back up. And truth be told, I have not turned the knob up on the dialing yet because of that weasel in me. And yet my calendar is still extremely full because what I've done is I've created 2 emails. I have 1 email for chat at ScaleX and 1 email for chat at BDR. 2 different, multiple personas, different database, different message and value proposition. So instead of 100 personal emails going a day, now it's 200. And I also have 2 or 3 different LinkedIn messages going out every single day. And so I am not making cold calls and I'm getting just as many meetings on my calendar. So there's no one size fits all approach. You have to look at your company. You have to look at cost per meeting. How many meetings do I need? Do people reply to social, email, phone? And you have to build the mix that fits with your company and the market that you're going after.
Wow, I love that. Well, Chad Burmeister, my man, dude, it has been an absolute honor and pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing your secret to maximizing sales. You have to increase the frequency. Well, you got to leverage the equation, to maximize sales. The answer is frequency times competency. And to do both of those, you have to ramp up the activity to master frequency. And then for competency, you have to master AdCom and many other parts of the sales basics, 101 and on up to 201 and many more. Thank you so much, man. Where can people find you, connect with you, learn more from a sales expert like yourself?
Yeah, LinkedIn's always a good way. It's just / Chad Burmeister, Burmeister. You come to our website, ScaleX, ScaleX.ai or BDR.ai. People are thinking, oh, did you close ScaleX? Is it rebranded? No, we have 2 companies. Actually, let me rewind that. We actually have 2 brands. So ScaleX is the full service prep platform and BDR.ai is the email and social. What I just shared with you, right? Why spend 10 or 12 grand a month when you can spend $600 and still fill up your calendar? That's really the power of BDR.ai. But yeah, those are the ways. Or my email, just chad@BDR.ai.
Wow, man. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode of Sales Secrets from the Top 1%, where the world's best sales experts share their secrets to sales success. Thank you again, Chad, for all of your time today, and look forward to seeing big things from you over the next year ahead.
See you on the slopes.